The 9 money and life lessons many of us learn way too late in life. This is the Focus Group.
Listen, laugh, and learn.
You have to drill that target audience.
It's the Focus Group with Tim Bennett and John Nash.
Until they are consuming your product, not because they love it, but because they can't escape.
We're all business.
Drill, baby, no more pussyfooting around.
Except when we're not.
Hey, welcome to the Focus Group, and we kick it off with an oldie but a goodie. That was some imaging that goes way back. Tim, that was Drill, Baby, Drill. Oh, the days gone by. Hey, Wednesdays, 1 to 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time is when you can find the Focus Group live, or go to focusgroupradio.com to learn all about me and Tim and our partners and sponsors, and also about Unbuttoned, our Tuesday podcast. And as I mentioned when I teased the show, these 9 money lessons in life, we are going to be going over later in the show. So if you're tuning in for just that, Tim, you would say just skip ahead, right? Just
skip ahead. We get some people on YouTube that complain that we tease something at the top of the show, and then they said, "Oh, it took them 45 minutes to get there." Yeah, it's an hour talk show.
Yeah,
I sound like Aunt Barbara yelling at the crowd, but yeah. So it's in our shop talk segment, we always try to do some sort of business lesson or something. And this one you found this week's quite good. Those 9 lessons that many people learn too late, and I know you and I agree with a lot of them. So stay tuned for that.
I agree with quite a lot of them. So things are good. You had a good 4th. I think you were down at the shore, right?
Yeah, I'm down in Delaware still. And it was a very quiet 4th of July. Actually, some of the businesses reported that it was their worst 4th of July in the history of keeping track. The state here, the governor had closed a number of what they called beach bars. But what people didn't understand is that the bars were closed in terms of people congregating, but the restaurants and everything were still open, but it scared people away. And so it was kind of quiet here, but we didn't do any of that anyway. We just had a couple of friends over and social distance outside with a barbecue. So for us,
are you basically saying
really matter.
That people canceled travel plans because they thought that they wouldn't be able to, when you said the beach bars, they just thought, oh, the beaches are, because the beaches were open, but you had a mask requirement, right?
Yeah, masks are required everywhere in Delaware, particularly in the beach communities, even on the beach, which I find odd. If you go to the beach to lay out in the sun, you're looking for a tan, do you want to wear a mask? But okay. And even exercising, and people are complaining about exercising because, and from your cycling, can you wear a mask and successfully do a heavy workout with breathing? And so there were some issues around that. But I think what happened, I have a friend, Lisa, who has Airbnb, and she had cancellations in the thousands of dollars and for her Airbnb properties because people were scared. And she had to let them all know, everything is open. You just can't go stand or sit at a bar. So that's the issue. You just can't go congregate at a bar. But you can eat outside, and you could eat in social distance in restaurants, which they're all set up to do that. So
when you say they were they scared of just being down there, or that they wouldn't be able to go anywhere or do anything? Or
well, think about it. If you had rented a house or you rented a hotel room and you heard the bars are closed or the beach bars are closed, and that's where you would eat or where you would go get takeout or any of that sort of thing, why would you come down? You can't cook in a lot of these places, right? So I think it was a communication issue. We actually talked about that, and I talked to her about it. I said, this whole thing has been fraught with communication issues, this whole event.
That's true.
And you and I
miscommunication, updated information, changing stories, yeah.
You and I talked about this on our Tuesday podcast, which was simply if they had just in the onset said, everyone needs to wear a mask for their safety.
Period.
End of story. And whether that means I'm going to be respectful of other people or people being respectful of me and not catching something, I think it would have been a lot clearer to just say, if you're concerned about catching the virus, that you should put on a mask or wear a mask. And that certainly didn't happen. Or the communication was botched. And then we know that it all tumbled the other way as well.
Tumbled down.
Right.
That's so true. That is so true.
Yeah. So
here we are in the new week.
Did you do anything? Did you do anything for the 4th?
We stayed pretty local. Stayed pretty quiet, actually. And we did watch, I think I mentioned this on Button, we did watch the Hamilton broadcast on Disney. Disney Plus. We liked it.
Right.
I can see why everybody was going crazy about it. But other than that, I think we saw Pat and Gary for dinner out on their patio, and other than that, pretty quiet. Some local fireworks.
I forgot to ask you. Did you pay for that? The Hamilton thing. Was it a pay
No,
per
it's
view
part
thing?
of if you have Disney Plus, the
Do you have
streaming
Disney
service.
Plus?
Yeah, it's like I think it's $6.99 a month.
What do you watch on there besides?
Well,
What do you watch on Disney Plus?
now you bring up a great point because I got it to watch this Star Wars series called The Mandalorian, and a lot of our listeners probably know The Mandalorian, but it ran, and there's other good stuff on there. So I'm thinking of just putting the service on pause, like
Right.
disconnecting for a while, and then when something that I want to see comes back on, I'll pay the. You know what? I think that might be the
Right.
smarter way. I'm glad you brought that up. Actually, I was thinking about that with a lot of these streaming services. Why not just turn them off and then back on? If there's a show you want to watch and you know you're going to have a month to watch it, well, I'll pay the $8.99. Then when it's over, but you have to remember to keep turning your account off. But
Right.
it's a bit of a pain.
Do they allow you to do that, or is there a premium if you were just going month to month?
No, you
sort of
can
thing?
cancel anytime you want, but then you have to sign up again. So I'm wondering, it might be a good experiment to see if you cancel and if the program remembers your membership and you just kind of turn it back on and you activate it, right?
Because I went to go watch Hamilton after your recommendation. A bunch of other people suggested it, and for me here, at least down where I am in Delaware, I could have just bought it for $6.99. I didn't have to sign up for anything.
Yeah.
I
So
could-
were you going to do that through like Apple TV or something?
Yeah, it was actually through Xfinity. And
Streaming.
it
Okay.
just popped up at $6.99, which I think they're associated with Disney anyway, Xfinity. So I thought, well, I'll just do that, but I didn't know if it was free on some packages, which obviously with Disney Plus it must be.
Yeah, but you're
But
still
either-
paying.
$6.99.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
And we don't watch a lot of Disney Plus. You would think that I'd be like all over the Pixar movies and watching a lot of the animation stuff, but we're not. We're not. I think our two most used services are probably Netflix and Amazon Prime.
Yeah. I'm the same way, but I'm also finding myself watching less and less TV and of any
Yeah.
of the services. I don't know if I'm also tired of hearing the same old thing over and over again on the news. So
There's that, and then there's also this notion of when you dive into a new show, do I want to be dealing with the new show? Do I want to make that binge commitment? And that's where I kind of.
yeah, Richard started watching The Politician this weekend. Have you watched it? Bette Midler's in it, a few other folks.
Did you like it?
He loved it. I heard it in the background, and then he's like, "Oh, you should watch it. You should watch it." But he's been watching it for a while, and I thought, I don't want to invest in that. I said, I'm not.
Go into your office.
It reminded me a little bit from what I heard in the background of Glee Goes to College, and I never was a fan of Glee. I don't know if you were a Glee fan.
Maybe one season, maybe two, and then
Yeah.
I lost the thread, like many
Yeah.
shows.
Yeah.
Sometimes one season is all you really need for some of these shows. You get the gist of it, right?
Yeah. And then you get bored.
Hey, before we get too much further into the show, I want to let our listeners know that Fiverr is a partner of ours here on the Focus Group, Fiverr.com. Go to Fiverr, and what you can do there is you can find people that do web design, logo design, voiceover. I have had so many different things done there over the course of using Fiverr for many years now, and so to have them be with us is fantastic. It's like having an office staff that's not on site. and one that could be highly specialized. For example, we had a client who needed to have their logo stitched onto a cap, and they needed a very particular file format. I never knew it existed. I found someone on Fiverr who could do it. They did it in 2 hours. They were halfway around the world. They did a fantastic job. They made one correction. I think it might, and I gave them a great tip. I think it might have cost, all told,
Wow.
Tim, it cost us $29. I hope you're not upset by the expenditure.
You shouldn't have spent more than 25. But that's the great thing there, because you can, if you have a budget or you have a specific cost in mind, when you start searching people. We had a listener the other day that contacted me and wanted to know who we had used for a couple of our projects. And I suggested that they, depending upon what their budget was or what they were looking for, that they needed to look around and see who they felt was going to address what they needed most, because there are a lot of great people there. And we have found great success, at least in the times I've used it, with non-Western countries.
Yeah.
I don't
No,
know if
that's
that's
fine.
the right way of saying
Yeah.
it, but But we had a great designer we were doing some things with from Bangladesh, Vietnam, and South Korea. So there's actually some great resources out there and great freelancers. So be sure to check out Fiverr. As John said, we're delighted because it's a service that we've used and have been using for quite a while. And we've turned other people onto it with success as well. So check out Fiverr and receive a 10% discount on your first order if you use the code FOCUS. It's FIVERR.com. At checkout, use the code FOCUS for 10% off. Again, Fiverr.com, code FOCUS for 10% off your first order. And you'll be as delighted as we are with the service. So thank you to Fiverr.
Indeed. Yeah, I can. I'll second everything Tim said and grab that code. Grab that offer if you can.
Grab that offer.
Grab that offer. So, without further ado,
What caught your eye? Here's what Tim and John found.
as the announcer says, Drew Birdsey, what caught your eye, Tim? He already said it, so you're good to go.
Oh, sorry.
It might be wise to let our audience know we're experimenting with a new way of bringing us together and bringing us to you. So Tim cannot sometimes hear some of the things called an audio cue. Yeah.
And I could see you, but then I pulled up the document. So anyway, caught my eye this week is speaking of July 4th is how the hot dog became an American icon. And this was a piece they did on CNN, and I love hot dogs. I don't know are you a hot dog fan?
It depends. It really depends on who makes the hot dog. I found that quality with hot dogs varies a great deal.
I've been trying to get you, and I don't know if you've done it, but one of my favorite hot dogs that I can source is the Costco hot dog for $1.50 with a drink. I think if anybody goes to Costco and doesn't pick up the hot dog, they're crazy. And a little secret, you can also ask for sauerkraut. It's not listed anywhere. You don't have to pay for it, but they do have a little thing of sauerkraut if you like that. Yeah, I always get sauerkraut. Yeah. I learned that from our friend Jeff, who does some work with us. So there was a story about the hot dog, and I thought, well, it caught my eye. So as of March, they reported that hot dog sales are up 127%. And they said it usually happens around grilling season, but they also think because of the event, it's an easy thing to cook, an easy thing to make, whether you steam it or you grill it or you boil it. And how many hot dogs do you think Americans eat between Memorial Day and Labor Day?
It's in the millions?
It's higher than the millions.
Billions?
It's in the billions. Ugh. with a B. Look at you. Yeah.
I'll go with
7.
I was going to go with 5 before you were going to say 7
billion.
Okay.
7 billion just between Memorial Day and Labor Day. So add an additional 27% onto that, and hot dog sales are going through the roof. And they said while they appear to be all American, they actually really did come from Germany. A lot of people do think that's where the Frankfurter came from. But in fact, they said there's so many areas of Germany and so many different types of sausages that it was somewhat surprising that the hot dog, or what we know as the hot dog, was the one that took off in America because the German immigrants had brought in so many different types of sausages. The one big difference here in the U.S. now is we started the all-beef hot dog. A lot of the Jewish American butchers in New York area, due to kosher restrictions, chose not to use the pork. And so that's why we have some of these all-beef hot dogs. They came in the 1800s to the U.S., and they think the name, they were originally called Red Hots, which they still actually use that name in Detroit and Maine. I don't know if you ever remember the Red Hots. Do you ever remember hearing that name?
I thought Red Hots were some kind of candy that, like the really hot candy. Like
yeah, those were the cinnamon candies from Mike and Ike or something.
Yeah, exactly.
No, I remember as a kid up in Maine because they would call them Reds or Red Hots, but it was essentially just what we know as a hot dog. And they really got their start off a cart. Charles Feltman began selling them in a converted pie cart in Coney Island. And they said that, you probably know this. Have you been to Coney Island recently?
No, not for years. Not for years. Yeah.
So they said as soon as the subway line was starting to go down to Coney Island, and it became this somewhat of a resort area for the city dwellers, that's how the hot dog really took off, because it was a simple grab and go sort of thing, and that's how the bun was developed as well. And it was known as then street food, and it was just easy to consume. So the person
Street
who
food.
which you'll like about this, the person who invented the bun or the buns, he was a bun slicer. I shouldn't say invented the bun, but they hired a bun slicer who we of course know the name Nathan Handworker, and he then took over and opened Nathan's famous hot dogs in 1960, and that's now become synonymous with the Coney Island dogs. But he worked for the Feltman family as a bun slicer, and then he opened his own hot dog business. My favorite place for hot dogs in the U.S. is Detroit, similar to Philly, where there's Geno's and Pat's Steaks. In Detroit, there's Lafayette and American Coney Island. And I like Lafayette, but the chili dogs there, every time I would go to Detroit, that's the first thing I would do.
Chili dogs.
Is go get a chili dog there. So, but that's what my eye. I didn't know if I love having just a hamburger and hot dog as a barbecue, particularly in the summer. And I lamented to you that a lot of people just want to do chicken, or they're doing salmon, or they're doing other sorts of things. But a good old barbecue with hamburgers and hot dogs I like, and apparently a lot of people do, and sales are up 27% more than previous years. So
for some reason,
hooray,
I
hooray
have
for the
this,
hot dog.
I have this memory of someone telling me that hot dogs used to be made with scrap meats and vermin. Could you imagine to someone saying to you, "Oh no, you don't want that because that was the catch of the day on the factory floor or something," you know, like
well, it was wasn't it a lot of the parts
and
like
entrailed. I don't know, but I think they've evolved. Well, they certainly, people love them, and you know, just this past weekend they had a hot dog eating contest. Was it Nathan's?
That is gross. Yeah, that's gross.
The winner, they showed him on the last dog, the last hot dog he was putting in his mouth, and the facial expression to me said, "Hold it together." Hold it together, because I'm sure after all that, his system wanted to not take the hot dog. If you know what I mean.
Do you remember how many he ate?
No, there was, and the number was just mind-boggling to me. I was like, oh my god, yeah.
No, that's too much for me. Too much. So what caught your eye this week?
What caught my eye this week is Lego once again is coming out with some interesting stuff, and in this case, it's Lego for adults. And what I mean by that is, they've come out with these a pop art series, and what it basically is you get either 4 frames or one. You could do 4 in 1 or one big thing. One of the first ones they're coming out with is that famous image of Marilyn Monroe that Andy Warhol painted, that really kind of graphic thing, the red lips, the blonde hair, and you put it together with all these little dots on this grid, and some of them come with a lot of pieces, some a little, but there's basically 4 sets. They're doing Andy Warhol's Marilyn Monroe. They're doing Lego the Beatles, and you can create John Lennon, Sir Paul McCartney, George Harrison, or Ringo Starr. Then there's Lego Marvel Studios Iron Man, and you can put together Iron Man, and then you have it's a big, long, rectangular thing. And then there's something called Star Wars the Sith, and it features Darth Vader, Darth Maul, or Kylo Ren, or you could just make one big Darth Vader. So the people behind it are of the opinion that many adults love puzzle making, they like creating art, and they need something to do as we all deal with the event. And I just think it's going to be fun anyway. The only hitch I have with any of this, and I've talked about this before, is it's one and done. You make it,
right,
and you could take it apart, I suppose. You could take it apart again, but that doesn't. You know what I mean? You're taking it apart.
It's an expensive puzzle.
It's a very expensive puzzle. That's exactly right.
I wonder how much they cost. Did they say how much they cost?
I think the sets are going to come in around starting somewhere in the 30. Oh, they gave it. Yeah. Oh no. I'm sorry. I take that back. Take that back. These prices are in pounds. Oh no. I'm $119 basically. $119.99, and they vary in price. Like the Marilyn Monroe one might be a little bit cheaper because it's just one thing. The bigger sets,
right,
like the Beatles and the Star Wars ones, might be a little more expensive. But apparently, people love this, and it's something to do. And there you go.
Wow. Well, you'll have to get one. I know you're a big Lego fan.
Yes. But I've restrained myself. So the other day we were watching TV, and a guy was giving an interview about medicine. And in his office, he had a huge model of a Saturn V rocket, the one that took the astronauts to the moon, into orbit and then to the moon. And we're looking at it, and Bob goes, "That looks like a Lego model." And I said, "You are not wrong. That's the Lego Saturn V." And he said, "Boy, that would be cool to have." So I go, go onto Amazon. Not so cool at $200 or $300. I kind of held up on that one.
But do you remember that when we were formerly on Sirius XM, we had done a story
About Lego.
about but the company that you could go and order them used and put them together and then send it back, almost like the way Netflix started, where
with the DVDs.
You'd have 2 weeks to build it, and then you take it apart and send it, and you'd get another kit to build. That sounds like that'd be better for you because you'd enjoy building it, and then you don't have it hanging around. You send for another one.
You know
and build
what?
It.
Thank you for reminding me of that, because that's exactly what it was. The parts come to you with the instructions. They've been sterilized and cleaned from the last person. You're right. You have 1 or 2 weeks to do it. Put it together, take it apart, bag it up, send it back, and if you're on a subscription thing, they'll send you something else to build on your list.
It's in your queue. Yeah.
What a great idea.
That's a good idea. Yeah,
all right, what I'm going to do right now, Tim, is I'm going to hit a little button.
Everyone does celebrity
button
birthday
gotta do?
greetings, but the Focus Group is the only show in the universe that celebrates business birthdays.
We just queued up business birthdays, so you're on.
So our business birthday today is John Stith. I think I'm saying it correctly, or Stith, Stith.
I struggled
Pemberton.
with that, by the way. When I set this up, I struggled with the look of that.
Was Stith?
I think it's Stith.
Stith?
I think you got that
Stith.
right. Yeah.
Born July 8th, 1831, died August 16th, 1888. At 57 years old, is very young, was an American biochemist. He's best known as the inventor of Coca-Cola. So in May 1886, he developed an early version of the beverage that would later become the world-famous Coca-Cola. He had suffered from a saber wound that he sustained during the Civil War. And his ensuing morphine addiction led him to experiment with various painkillers and toxins. And in the end, it led him to this recipe that was laterly adapted to make Coca-Cola. He was born in Georgia. His family actually hailed from England originally, or the British colonies, or the British Empire, and settled in Bucks County, PA. But then he had gone to school, and the family had moved to Georgia. So during the Civil War, he fought for the South. At the age of 19, he earned his medical degree, and found out that his talent was really in chemistry. He practiced medicine for a little while, they said, with some surgery, but then ended up opening a drugstore in Columbus, Georgia. And as I said, in the Civil War, he had a saber wound to his chest, and he became addicted to morphine to ease the pain, and he couldn't find anything to ease the pain. So he decided to experiment with other sort of painkillers that were morphine-free and alternatives to morphine. His first recipe was something called Dr. Tuggle's compound syrup of globe flour. That's a tough one to market. John, I'd like you to market Dr. Tuggle's compound syrup of globe flour. It was derived from 2 toxic plants, one from Alaska, a button bush, and he experimented with that, and then he started adding cocoa leaves and cocoa wines, and eventually created another recipe that was more alcohol induced and had the aphrodisiac of Damiana, which is a Mexican shrub, and that was called Pemberton's French Wine Cocoa. And that was successful for a while. He sold that at the store. They marketed it as it would help with addiction, depression, alcoholism, and fatigue, even though it had alcohol.
I like the fatigue one. Yeah, peps you up, right?
It was also going to be good for the highly strung Southern women that were of the time, and it was beneficial for the ladies who led a sedentary employment. So all of a sudden, the country went through this temperance thing where we didn't want to have alcohol in anything, and no alcohol, and so there was alcohol legislation. So he had to take the alcohol out of it. And he gave it to this drugstore owner in Atlanta. So it was sold as a medicine. So this drugstore owner, Willis Venable, began to try to test and make this without the alcohol in it, as I said, and by accident blended the syrup with carbonated water. And they tasted it, and they're like, "Well, it's not too bad." So this so he decided to sell it as a fountain drink instead of a medicine, and came up with the name Coca-Cola for the alliterative sound. And it became very, very popular. Cocaine was, in fact, in the original Coca-Cola, but they said there were only slight trace amounts, and they kept it up until the 1920s because they felt that they needed to do it in order to hold the trademark patent. And Coca-Cola now says it was just a fanciful name, the Coca-Cola. Why didn't really refer to cocaine, but in fact, they did say it did have slight traces of cocaine, but most of it wouldn't have got a fly high. They said it was very, very limited.
That's the urban legend that the stuff was
Yeah.
loaded with it, right?
So it was marketed as a valuable brain tonic that would cure headaches, relieve exhaustion, calm your nerves. It was delicious, refreshing, pure joy, exhilarating, and invigorating. So it ended up hitting the market, doing well, but Dr. Pemberton fell ill and nearly bankrupt. And so he was desperate, and he sold his formula to a bunch of business partners. And part of it was because he still ended up having the morphine addiction and wasn't able to kick it. He wanted to keep some shares of the stock and give them to his son because he thought his son would be able to survive on the proceeds. And the son ended up selling it and died as well. So the son sold his share for $1,750.
Of Coca-Cola.
Of Coca-Cola, which in today's value would be $47,000, but still nothing when you think about it, right? He could have had all of this.
I thought when you said that, I thought when you went to today's value, we were going to get like some outrageous, like millions of dollars. 47,000.
No, I think that's what it would be worth. I mean,
okay.
it would be worth probably millions, but he sold his share for $1,750, which in today's dollars is like $47,000, which is nothing, right?
Yeah.
I shouldn't say nothing, but it's certainly not what you'd expect for Coke. So kind of a sad ending to both of them. The son also died of stomach cancer at a young age, and the father died of the morphine addiction and ill as well. But founder of Coca-Cola, or the Coca-Cola recipe. I used to like Coke. I thought it wasn't as sweet as Pepsi.
You and I grew up on it. I mean, I didn't have it all the time, but if you and I were, well, actually, for years, if you and I went to McDonald's, I knew you were 2 cheeseburgers, regular fries, and a Coke,
Yep.
or orange
Coke
soda,
or the orange drink.
or the
Either
orange drink. I was usually 2 burgers, regular, large fry, and I would do a Coke or an orange soda as well. Those are the days when we could eat that kind of food.
I know. I was trying to think the last time I had a Coca-Cola. I don't know if I can even tell you the last time. I stopped drinking soda 25 years ago. And I haven't really had soda. Once in a while, if I'm somewhere and I'm thirsty, I'll take a diet something, but I stopped drinking soda. I don't know if I don't know. Do you drink any sort of
Nope,
soda?
it's been a long time. The last time I actually have a memory of having a Coca-Cola was one of the mini cans, and I had done a century bike ride, the 100-mile
wow.
ride. And at the end of the ride, they had these tubs of ice with these little mini Coke cans in them. And the guy that I was riding with, my friend Adam, said, "Oh man, you're in for a treat." And it never tasted so good. That
Wow.
was the best Coca-Cola, and in fact, I had 2 of those little mini cans. But that was the last time I had it. So
Never tasted so
never
good.
tasted so good. Hey, as many of you know, Deep Discount is a partner of ours here on the Focus Group, and we would love you to visit their site by going to ours. Go to focusgroupradio.com, click on the Deep Discount logo, which is Sharky the Shark. Arr! And his name really is Sharky. And then I do the pirate, as you all know. Arr, the pirate, which is the shark. We find all sorts of things at Deep Discount. Last month was site-wide sale, but this coming Friday on the 10th of July is something called Ultraman Day. And Deep Discount has it's an exclusive release called Ultraman Collection, The Birth of Ultraman on Blu-ray. And do you know about Ultraman at all? I mean, we were talking about this before the broadcast, but this is a very special kind of show.
Right. It came out in the 60s in Japan, right?
Mm-hmm.
If I'm not mistaken. And very much iconic. And as soon as I heard of the 60s, I mean, Japan did a lot of great animation. And Ultraman was certainly part of it, and a number of other shows people are familiar with. But what's cool about this is when we found out that it's an exclusive Blu-ray release for Ultraman, and it features the Marvel comic art by Alex Ross. And so July 10th, this coming Friday being Ultraman Day, I was like, wow, imagine having your own day. I don't have my own day. Do you yet?
I'm going to butcher. No, I'd like to think that every day is a John Day, but it's not. But so we did a little more research on this, and this is the genre of film and television and storytelling that involves big monsters and big heroes and towns getting crushed. Right. It's sort of in the same vein as the Godzilla movies. But the Ultra series is one of the most well-known examples, and this is how I hope I don't pronounce it incorrectly, of the daikaiju, which means giant monster genre. So now you know what I'm talking about. Along with
Right.
Toho's Godzilla series and et cetera, et cetera. However, the Ultra series also falls into the Kyode Hiro, which means giant hero. So today's lesson, Daikaiju, which means giant monster series, or Kyode Hiro. How do you think my Japanese sounds, Tim? Is it really that bad?
Not too bad. I don't think you have to accent it, but not too bad.
You don't think I have to accent it? All right, so this collection is when they do something like this, it's full frame, remastered. A lot of the audio available for the shows includes the Japanese and the English soundtrack along with subtitles. And then they've curated and picked some of the best or some of the most favorite of the Ultraman titles. Ultra Operation Number 1, Shoot the Invader, Demons Rise Again. I love these titles. The Monster Highness, Parts 1 and 2. The Forbidden Words, A Little Hero. And then there's a special documentary that I read about, and it was how they introduced Ultraman to the public in 1966. And it's this,
Right.
They did a stage show, which they filmed. So I guess the stage show must have had people in costume doing all the stuff. They filmed that, and that became like kind of the premiere and they debut of it. So for me, when I see a collection like this, I love the fact that we might be able to see this stuff in super, cleaned up, like it was shot yesterday. And then I love that behind the scenes idea and how they would market something like this, right?
Right. Well, there's all those extras. So that was, that originally aired in Japan on July 10th, 1966. So that's included in this exclusive from Deep Discount. So, as you said, it's great to get all those extras, and it's exclusive with our friends at Deep Discount.
And
so
it's
head
not
over
expensive. It's $19.99. If you want to check out Ultraman and this whole genre, and just have a fun ride down the rabbit hole, I say go for it, right?
Right. So once again, head over to focusgroupradio.com, click on the Deep Discount logo, and get your exclusive copy of Ultraman on Blu-ray. Right, John?
Thanks, Deep Discount.
Very well done. Hey, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we've got some shop talk for you. And as John teased earlier on, it's a father's letter to his son or his daughter, but it says his kid. It's the 9 money and life lessons most people learn too late in life. And quite frankly, we agree. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
You're listening to The Focus Group with Tim and John. Learn more at focusgroupradio.com. Now, back to The Focus Group with Tim and John.
Glamour today is nothing but a tight skirt, loose hips, and wet lips.
An entertaining look at the world of business.
Make it work. Make it work. Make it work.
I have the advantage of hearing the rejoin, and Tim, that was "Make It Work," one of your other great audio,
Make It Work.
Audio gems. So at the very top of the show, we teased an article, and it was a letter to a father's daughter, or a letter to his kid. They say a father's letter to his kid. I hate when they just say kid. And the theme of the letter was the 9 money and life lessons most people learn too late in life. And we're going to run through them because we think it's a fantastic list. And this kind of thing comes up. I actually ascribe this to you know those commencement speeches people give that turn out to be like these real famous things that everybody downloads or watches.
Right.
This reminds me of that, where it's these simple, clean, easy life lessons that really I think I personally agree with completely, and I know you do. So let's take it from the top.
So the first one is, don't underestimate the role of chance in life, or you and I always call that luck, right? There's a certain amount of luck in everybody's life or everyone's career. And that one says so the first one was, don't underestimate the role of chance in your life. And they said that families, values, countries, and generations were born into, the families, values, countries, and generations we're born into, as well as the people we happen to meet along the way, all play a bigger role in our outcomes than most people want to admit. So it really is about circumstance, which a lot of circumstance has luck to it. What school did you go to? What people did you hang out with? What friends did you associate with? Did you move around? And a lot of that is not necessarily planned, but it's chance encounters, right? You never know who you'll meet or who you'll be involved with. So just don't underestimate the role of chance in life.
Hey, it's one of our golden rules in business. The role that luck plays. Never underestimate what luck does. Right.
Right.
Number 2 on his list to one of his kids' letters was, or a letter to a kid. The highest dividend money pays is the ability to control time. The thrill of having fancy stuff wears off quickly, but a job with flexible hours and a short commute will never get old. Having enough savings to give you time and options during an emergency will never get old. Being able to retire when you want to will never get old. And he finishes by saying, achieving independence is our ultimate goal in life, but independence isn't an all or nothing. Every dollar you save is like owning a slice of your future that might otherwise be managed by someone else based on their priorities. So this, I actually love this because the dividend money pays is the ability to control time, which fits perfectly into what I've told people for years. Money is a utility. Nothing more, nothing less. Don't judge it too hard. Don't go crazy.
Yeah, no, that's a great one. And I love the fact of the time issue, because you and I have both said that about you really can't put a value on your control of time if you can do it. So that's a great one. Number 3, don't count on getting spoiled. And so he says that in this letter to his child that if you understand early on that everything, you can't always have everything you want, and the only way to understand this is needs versus desires, is to actually work for these things yourself in many cases. So we're not going to spoil you was kind of the edict from him. And this will help you with budgeting, saving, valuing what you already have. You and I have thought about this a lot. How angry, I don't know if angry is the right word. Maybe angry is a word. When you and I were in high school and a lot of our friends were off, let's go to Europe, let's go do this. And, you and I were figuring out how to get to work to make a buck to go to college.
Yeah.
So
it was even after college, the lucky ones that got to take a trip through Europe for 3 or 4 months, or the spring breakers. Yeah, no, it was always, well, you and I.
So our parents subscribed. Our parents subscribed to number 3. Don't count on getting spoiled.
Yeah, did they heavily subscribe to that one.
Right.
This next one is success doesn't always come from big actions. Napoleon's definition of a genius is the person who can do the average thing when everyone else around him is losing his mind. I thought that was kind of a fascinating quote. Managing money is the same. You don't have to do amazing things to end up in a good place over time. You just have to consistently not screw up for long periods of time. Avoiding catastrophic mistakes, the biggest of which is burying yourself in debt, is more powerful than any fancy financial tip. This is like dollar cost averaging. If you're going to save $5 a week for the rest of your life, there's something good's going to come out of that, right?
Yep. Number 5, live below your means. And this one is difficult, I think, in a materialistic society like ours, trying to keep up with the Joneses. But essentially, it's the ability to live with less is one of the most powerful financial levers, because you'll have more control over it than other things like your income or investment returns. And it said somebody could be very happy making 50 if they've learned how to live on 40,000 a year, versus someone who makes 150,000 a year that needs 160,000 a year to live. And so he talked about, again, it's not how much you make that determines how much you have, but it's how much you realize or determine about what you need. And so it's this the whole thing about living below your means, which I would say I've really changed myself in my focus. I would say when I was 30 or early 40s, I had a different view of what housing should be for me versus what it is now. In no way now would I ever want to have the sort of house I thought I wanted to have at 35, 40 years old, or living conditions. So I get that. Live below your means. I like that one.
This one is kind of like the millionaire next door philosophy, right?
Yeah.
If the people that had that small house that just they went on one vacation every once in a while, and it turns out they have bags of money. Number 6, it's okay to change your mind. Now, this would seem to be self-evident, but I think that there's a certain rigidity in our youth that I've noticed about myself, that this is the way it's going to be. I'm never going to change my mind. And he says to the father who wrote this to one of their children, almost no one has their life figured out by age 18, so it's not the end of the world if you pick a major that you end up not enjoying. I love this part. Or get a degree in a field that you're not 100% passionate about. Or work in a career and later decide you want to do something else. It's okay to admit that your values and goals have evolved. Forgiving yourself for changing your mind is a superpower. I like that. That one about forgiving yourself for changing your mind, big, big, big thing for me. It's a big impediment for me sometimes to get out of my own way.
But you're right. People get themselves stuck, and then they don't do that. But he's saying that's okay. Number 7, everything has a price. And I would add to that one, I added in parentheses, everything and everyone has a price.
I love the tilt of the head.
If I were writing that one, I would also say that in my experience that everyone has a price, and not in a and that's not in a nasty way, but in terms of what people will do or what people will do in their careers in order to move ahead or not move ahead, depending upon what they want to do. But it says the price of a busy career is time away from friends and family. The price of long-term market returns is uncertain and volatile. And the price of spoiling your kids is them living a sheltered life. So he says that once you accept the fact and start to see things and view things differently, relationships and other sort of creativity as currency is much more valuable than cash. I don't know if I stumbled through that correctly, but everything has a price.
Everything has a price. No, and it makes you it's a calculus that you could then use to make decisions about how you invest your time, who you're investing it with, etc. Number 8, and we're almost at the end of this list, is money is not the greatest measure of success. We have said this often. Warren Buffett is quoted as saying, when the number of people you want to love you actually do love you, that's the measure of success. I think it's pretty self-explanatory. No amount of money can compensate for a lack of character, honesty, and genuine empathy towards others. I cannot agree with that more. In our business career, in our and the company that Tim and I own, we work with a lot of different people. We have had the fortune of working with people who I think are fantastic, and then there's the ones that don't live up to that axiom, and it's super interesting when you run across it. You're like, ooh, boy, you may have everything in the world, but not so sure, right?
No, we just experienced that recently. Money doesn't cure everything, right?
Not at all.
Certainly. What is that? Somebody used to say. A lot of some people have a lot of money and no class. Some people have a lot of class and no money. Number 9, don't blindly accept any advice you're given. Now, you and I often say if somebody wants to give you advice, take it. Somebody wants to give you a mint, take it. But
I don't remember the mint one, but I do remember the advice one.
If someone offers you advice or mint, take it. But this says don't blindly accept any advice you're given. And essentially this is don't take anyone's advice without contextualizing it with your own values, goals, or circumstance. Somebody could say, oh, you should go do A, B, or C. But in your own mind, you might say, I'm not sure that's the way I would handle it based upon what I know for the issue. So whether that was career or maybe it's a personal relationship or something, I think you have to put it in context yourself. Advice, I think, is welcome, but he's saying don't blindly accept it, that you need to contextualize it or put it in the proper context.
Who it's coming from, what it means, how old you are when you're hearing it,
Right, is there an ulterior motive that the person might have? So those were the 9 lessons. I thought this was good. This came from, was this from CNN or CNBC?
CNBC, I think, yeah.
Right, the guy's name was Morgan Housel, who's a writer and a columnist. So I thought it was well done. And you're right, it did remind me a little bit of those graduation speeches that people do.
Here's what you're going to get in life, right?
Here's what you're going to get in life, exactly. So, hey, thanks everybody for joining us here. This is somewhat of our maiden voyage, I guess, for John and I. This show's produced by John T. Nash of Triberry Productions. And thanks to our friends at Fiverr, Fiverr.com. If you go there and use the code FOCUS at checkout, you'll get 10% off your first order. It's a great place to find any sort of freelance help, whether you're building a website or looking for a logo, or even wanting to have somebody write you a jingle. So check out Fiverr.com and use the code FOCUS. Also, a special thanks to our friends at Deep Discount. July 10th, this Friday, is Ultraman Day, and they have an exclusive Blu-ray release with not only some of the best episodes of the Ultraman series, but also it's going to have some great behind-the-scenes footage and some premiere shows that were done from Japan. So check that out. It's an exclusive from our friends at Deep Discount. Go to focusgroupradio.com, click on the logo, and you'll be able to find it. Thank you, John. I hope everybody out there has a great week, and we'll see you on Tuesday on our podcast, TFG Unbuttoned.
It's The Focus Group with Tim Bennett and John Nash. Accessible on all platforms. Subscribe, like, and rate us on your platform of choice. Learn more at focusgroupradio.com.
That was a stunning focus group.